And let me talk to you about the Rams. Obviously, you are fully entrenched now in the Rams as part of the pregame and the halftime and the postgame. So the Rams are on their way to take on the Titans. Here's my thought. I can't wait to hear your feedback. Look, the Rams did not play great offensively on Sunday. We all get it, right? It's also the first game where you've got Stafford and Davante Adams on the field at the same time. You've got three different tight ends to choose from, given when they're all healthy, although Colby Parkinson had that shoulder thing that happened on that fumble play. So they just didn't play great on offense. I would say on defense, though, between the defensive front, the secondary on blitzes, the interception that was made in the secondary, and I think also, obviously, we've all become consumed with Nate Landman. I call him the Landman. He was my favorite player going in because of his story, dad, the rugby player, Zimbabwe, and then Danville, California, Colorado, and Sua. I love the undrafted free agent, the guy who just grinds it out and makes it. And then you sign a one-year deal, and you're not only you're a starter, you're a captain, dude, and then you're a playmaker. So, look, it wasn't necessarily impressive, but when you look at what Tennessee did this past weekend in Denver, I think the Rams defense will crush the Titans offense. That's my expectation. And I think the Rams offense will be significantly better in week 2. Sua, they're on the road for the first week. What do you say, Sua?
I think that people need to consider a few things. One, the Texans are hurt. The Texans are not at 100%. So you saw a Houston team that didn't have Tank Dell, didn't have Joe Mixon, not necessarily the best O-line that can protect C.J. Stroud. So we can't get a real gauge of how talented the Rams are because the Texans were down. On the flip side of that, you were dealing with the Rams team that played their absolute worst on offense. Like, if you think that there's a reality where Davante Adams and Kyron Williams combined for that minimal of yardage and one touchdown, you're mistaken. It will be a week in and week out thing where Puka and Davante score and Kyron gets in for 6 or runs for 100 yards. So you saw a Rams offense that wasn't at its best and didn't produce, and they still won the football game. That's hats off to that D-line who played extremely well. Young played well. Verse played well. You talked about the linebackers and the peanut punch at the end that we saw. We saw a defense that could adapt to change, adapt to the offense being stagnant, not move the ball, and get turnovers and get the ball back into the offense's hands. So that's all you want to see. And when I saw the defense play like that, it gives me confidence to win these next few games, especially against the Titans next week. You got a rookie quarterback who struggled against Denver, who did their absolute best to try to give him the game. I mean, Bo Nix played atrocious, right, and Denver still won. So I think the Rams go to Tennessee, and they win handily, and I think it'll be a 3-score game.
I agree, and I think the line in the game was, Lindsay, do you remember? I think it was 5.5. We talked about it yesterday. Yep. And I said to Sedano yesterday, Sue, I said, look, I think the Rams will win this game very comfortably. I think by at least 2 scores. So I know I'm going to play the Rams to cover the 5.5. I know it's a lot of money, or it's a lot of points on the road. But so, when you think about Davante Adams, 4 catches, 51 yards, there were 8 targets total. There were a couple of drops, but all in all, you've got Davante Adams up against their best cornerback, Darryl Stingley Jr., where most offensive coordinators would say, okay, that side of the field is shut down. Let's focus on this side of the field. I thought Davante Adams ran really good patterns. I thought he came up with some very important catches along the way. And while Puka ultimately sealed the deal and put up much bigger yards, Davante did have a big impact in that game, even if it doesn't show up in the box score. What did you think about that?
Yeah, well, when you get assigned a team's best corner, that's saying something, and that means that they're dedicating a very elite resource of their defense to stop you. Now, first play of the game, they targeted Davante, and he took a huge hit that ended up hurting the safety. I think his name was Singleton. He got hurt trying to hit Davante, and I think that led to a few drops for Davante. A little case of the alligator arms. Even for a vet, when you got a safety trying to take your head off, you'll see that even Puka got hurt. But as the game progressed, we saw that Davante started creating separation. When Puka came back in the game and they tried to rotate Stingley to try to give it different looks to Puka versus Davante, that's when Davante's offense started kicking in. Puka picks up the double team. Davante's open one-on-one on third down on the quick slants. And then you're going to see a lot of that. This Rams offense, and I've talked so much about that offseason acquisition because it gives Stafford the freedom to throw the ball or disperse the ball as needed. He doesn't have to force targets to Puka like maybe we saw with Nico Collins and the Texans last week when you don't have a lot of weapons and another receiver to take the pressure off the number one. You got to start forcing balls their way. We don't have to do that with the Rams. Puka gets double-teamed, you can hit Devontae, and we saw that in the second half. Whenever Devontae got the one-on-one, that was Stafford's first read.
You know who else is a name that we have not really mentioned at all during the week, who I think also had an impact on the game, and that is beyond just Puka and Devontae, but Jordan Whittington. That's a guy who you just kind of forget that the Rams do go deeper than Puka and Devontae. And Whittington has a role in the kicking game as well as a return man. I want to give that kid a little shout out because that's a name that we're not hearing that much because you've got superstar wide receivers. But that young dude had some impact on that game too.
The young man out of Colorado, he had a great kick return that got called back. You can tell he has a little speed to him. When he gets in the game, he has a burst where he can run those deep overs and take advantage of his opportunities. Could give Tutu a run for his money as that number 3 option because, we saw him get more targets than Tutu last week. And even Xavier Smith, you got a lot of guys in this receiver room that can make plays if given the opportunity. Now, thankfully, we don't need these young guys to step up at the moment when you have 2 premier wide receivers, but the Rams are not hurting in the wide receiver room in the slightest.
Yeah, and again, just back to Nate Landman for 1 second. Sua, look, you were an All-American at SC. You were a second-round draft choice. You were a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, so you had all the accolades. But when you're a kid who is not highly recruited out of high school and you get your opportunity to play in the NFL as an undrafted free agent and you make a team, that is a huge accomplishment. When you actually make a team and play, that's an even bigger accomplishment. But the fact is, Nate Landman and the guy who was a defensive player of the week, he was in Atlanta, he was on the team, he was off the team, he was on injured reserve. I mean, they just didn't have a future plan for him. And when Jimmy Lake, who was the defensive coordinator of the Falcons last year, came back to the Rams as a senior defensive assistant this year, he went to Sean McVay and said, this guy, Landman, he's a guy we should be looking at. To be an undrafted free agent, to become a starter on a 1-year deal and become a captain and a play caller, hey, listen, Sue, I root for the undrafted free agent. I call them heart and soul guys because those are the guys that they may not make as much money, but they're an important part. And that's how the Rams have built this defense. They haven't spent a ton on it, but they find guys.
Yeah. The Rams have done a great job in finding talent in those mid-rounds from like the 2nd to 5th round. They've done a great job. I think Jared Verse is their only first-rounder on that D-line, and their strongest unit on defense is that front 4, front 7. And you talk about Landman, like getting that peanut punch out at that time in the game against a running back that rarely fumbles is huge. And to have the confidence to know, like, I'm not going to wrap up, I'm not going to break down. It's a crucial part of the game. It's time to make a play. And to have the goal to punch at the ball and risk a broken tackle and extending the drive right there is huge. And if he continues to make plays like that, not only will he be a household name, he can forget about being an undrafted free agent. This guy will be on contract for years to come.
Yeah, right. He'll get beyond this 1-year contract that he's on right now. It's hard for me or any, I think, average person to think, how could he have done that? Like, I've watched that highlight over and over and over again, and for him to be able to see the ball while the running back is in motion the way he is, and to actually be able to hit the ball the way he did, you tell me, man. You've been on an NFL field. You've probably been a part of a lot of turnovers in your career, but to be able to see it and then go get it and actually complete the punch, it's hard for me to actually imagine it because it all seems to be happening in split seconds.
His mind was made up. His mind was made up before the runner even got to him. It's something we practice all the time in the league. Coaches drill it into your brain like peanut punch. Get at least one punch at the ball when you go make the tackle. Even when we're in, helmets and we're in OTAs and we're practicing against each other all spring long, receivers and running backs will tell you, I hate playing against the defense in live scrimmages when we're in OTAs because I have bruises all over my forearms and shoulders and biceps because the entire team is punching me as they run by. So it's something each team tries to implement into your culture, but You rarely see guys do it in the game because you don't want to be the guy that misses the tackle because you went for a peanut punch and you got stiff-armed and thrown out the club. Ask anybody who tries to peanut punch Derrick Henry, they get thrown out the club. No white tees in the club. So that's why it's very impressive. At that point in the game, for him to do a Peanut Tillman punch-out and to recover it was a ridiculous play.
Week 2, NFL Sunday Rams-Titans coverage begins Sunday morning at 8 a.m. The Toyota Rams countdown to kickoff with Travis Rogers and Sua Cravens. Kickoff at 10 a.m. from Nashville. You'll hear J.B. Wong, DeMarco Farr, Maurice Jones-Drew on the call. And then the postgame show, Travis and Sua recap the entire